Good evening and welcome to a conversation with Yigal and Shear Ozeri. My name is Barbara Cohn and I'm honored to be hosting this program with one of the leading photorealist artists in our world today, Yigal Ozeri. The format for tonight will start with an interview discussion. Then we will have a 5-minute video of Yigal's studio in Jersey City and learn about his artistic process. Then we will have a presentation of some of his works of art, including his newest series, Americana. First, I'd like to thank both our guests for this incredible opportunity to talk to both of you, especially with your busy travel schedule, opening of exhibits in this crazy world of COVID. I think every time I've talked to you, you've been in a different place: Israel, New York, London, and I believe you're in Florida now. So yes. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much. We're very happy to participate in that talk.
I thought I'd first give some of our guests a little bit of background on you. Yigal is a New York City-based Israeli artist, best known for large-scale cinematic portraits of young women in lush landscapes. His unique style of photorealist paintings bring a romantic and uninhibited sensibility to the canvas. His oil paintings convey the spirit of his subjects, giving way to a seductive power. As a result, the viewer is compelled to gaze into the painting as they wonder if it is real or fantasy. Ozeri has shown extensively around the world, and his paintings are in the permanent collections of the Whitney Museum of American Art, the McNay Art Museum in San Antonio, the Jewish Museum in New York, the New York Public Library, the Israel Museum, the Tel Aviv Museum of Art, the Albertina Museum in Vienna, and now the Flint Museum of Arts. And by the way, he just finished a 3-month solo exhibit called Brush with Reality. That was amazing, over 50 works of art. It was wonderful. Shear Ozeri is an Israeli-born woman raised in New York City. She has a degree in public relations and communications from the University of Buffalo and is the studio director of Yigal Ozeri LLC. Her roles include business operations, logistics, PR, sales, curating, photography, writing, copy editing, and administrative tasks. Shear is the direct liaison between Yigal Ozeri's studio and the 15 galleries that represent him internationally, including both group and solo exhibits and art fairs. Shear has been an integral part of Ozeri's studio for the past 12 years. That's a big job. So first I'd like to ask you, Yigal, a little bit about your background growing up in Israel and your art. What did you always know you wanted to be an artist?
Yes, the first moment that I introduced to art, it was with my neighbor when I was 6 years old in Tel Aviv. And I had a neighbor that every Saturday used to invite me to his home and copy from encyclopedia a lot of animals, like he shows me picture and he by himself used to paint and draw. And that was, I remember, the first time that I done that. And I could tell today one story about my childhood, when my father, one day I came back like crying from the school, and I was 5 years old, and ran home, and my father was shocked. Why you came? And he go back with me to the school, and the teacher said that in a painting class I was not listen to her, and I was used to do like a drawing that circle and circle and doesn't listen what she has to do, and she hit me on my fingers, and my father was so upset, and he fight, and in the end they took this teacher out from the school. But my father didn't give up. He took my drawing to psychology, and the psychology told him that this is a sign of an artist, that the guy that do a drawing again and again and again, like in the same energy. And she saw that I'm bothering them, and I'm not going to be an artist. And here we are. I'm an artist today.
You certainly are, and a wonderful artist.
Yeah. So
Did
this is how it started in Israel, in my neighborhood in Tel Aviv.
And did you go to art school?
I went to art school, but I'm mostly self-taught. I went to art school in Bat Yam. It's a small city near Tel Aviv, and I learned in a school in the same time. You know, everybody in Israel is going to the army, so I went in the same. It was very important. 3 years from when you are 18 to 21. I used to go every afternoon to the school and go back to the army and serve in the night and come back again. I was lucky to have that in Israel because it doesn't happen so often, but because they appreciate my talent, that's what I done, and this is how I start.
That's remarkable. I had no idea that you did both, actually. That's pretty unique.
Yes, in the same time I had in a academia in Israel, and my teachers was the leading artists in Israel in that time. But I could say about myself that my generation in Bezalel, in the academy or in the other school was called the Generation of Reproduction. What does it mean? Because I never, in the beginning of my career, all my teachers teach me how to paint abstract. I was an abstract painter because we didn't have any figurative painting in the museum. What we have is to learn from a book, from black and white reproduction. And this is the only thing that we saw in Israel. And I remember my teacher said, you don't have to paint a portrait, you just glue a collage and you do that. This is how I learned. So basically, to be a photorealistic artist or to be a realistic artist, I self-taught. I teach myself through to see museum and through to see books and to practice by myself. I didn't have this education in the schools in Israel.
Now, I read somewhere that you started with photorealism in about 2000. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I think I have advantage on other photorealistic artists because my background start more like an abstract painter, and you know, and today when photorealistic artists painting, they paint it like very much academic, and the first layer and the far layer is the same way. It's almost like a still life, and my painting is much more alive because I had to train like an abstract painter, and the understanding to fuse abstract and figurative give me a lot of advantage on a lot of other artists. And I'm very happy that I start like that and change over the years. Most of the artists start when they are realistic and move to abstract. And in my way, like Philip Gaston, like example, I went from abstraction to realism.
An interesting thing on Philip Gaston, he was born with the name Goldstein, by the way.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a Jewish artist, phenomenal artist.
Right.
That what we can say about if allowed me, because he's one of my idol, one of my hero. He is an artist that most of his life was an abstract painter, and suddenly he came one day and he said, I'm tired to paint abstract. I want to tell a story. I want to paint a portrait. I want to feel, to see people. So, and when he done that, he finished his life like with no money, with anything. It was only one gallery that helped him because he changed, and a lot of people was like didn't understand why it happened like that. It's happened to me the same in Israel. When I start in the beginning, a lot of collectors collect me and support me in a museum, and I was more like doing like architecture drawing or abstract more works. And then when I change, a lot of people said, no, we don't want to buy from you. What are you doing to that? I bought so many works and suddenly you change your style. How possible? But I think artists that do that have the courage and to have a freedom to do whatever they want. I think this is the real artists that do like Philip Gaston, that he stand up one day and do what he want and what he feel and what he love.
So would you say there's any artists that you were influenced by?
Yes. Yes, there's other artists that influence that. That's more. The first one that I like very much is it's Andrew Wyatt. Everybody know who is Andrew Wyatt. Is an American hero. But I remember, and I will never forget that it was a show of him in Philadelphia Museum of Art, and I came, and it was a line of, I'm not exaggerating, around 3,000 people standing outside and waiting to get inside. I never saw something like that that could be in art. And I remember I walked with the people and I asked them, where you come from? From Arizona. Where you come from? Everybody come from different places in the state. And I remember in the same time, there was an article in the news and in New York Times, and they asked Robert Storr, that he was the curator, the chief curator in the MoMA, and they asked him, why you don't gonna bring the show of Andrew Wyatt to New York, to the MoMA? And I remember the most crazy answer that he answered. He said, because Andrew Wyatt is esoteric artist. That's what he used, esoteric artist, that only him and his family understand what he do. And that's unbelievable. I saw all the people that love him and all the stuff, and I think he was amazing artist that sit in Pennsylvania and paint women in the nature. And I remember that shocking that he done to me when I saw his small brushes, the use of small brushes to paint in tempera and do an amazing painting and so intimate. And he influenced me a lot. I love him so much, and he is a hero of American art. But a lot of people in the media, in the mainstream, in the contemporary art, doesn't appreciate him. But in the end, the people that love him and the crowd that love him win, because he is a legend in the American art.
It's funny, I'm thinking about your detail. You know, when you talk about, I remember in Flint, you talked about, you know, the hair and your detail. You know, people looking at your works of art think they're photographs. You know, yes, the detail that you bring and the stories you bring.
Yes, I think my uniqueness in photorealism, or in portraiture in general, if you say realistic painter or other artists, is the use of the light in the skin and the use of brushes to paint hair. Because mostly, even you take a classical painter, and you can see in Velázquez or in Goya, and only in Dürer is a German artist that took the small brush, and also he influenced me. When you come close, you see his brush, how he paint hair, every hair, like with a small brush. So I think a lot of people, they paint the portrait and they paint the eyes and the skin and everything, but the hair is almost something that they don't want to put attention to that, because it's very difficult. And if you want, I always say to my assistant, or I said to artists, they ask me what, I said it's always, you have to be unique. You have to learn what other people didn't do and what you can bring to the world and what you can add to realism. And I think that's my part, what I add in what you mentioned it now. It's I think that's a lot of people react to that everywhere in the world.
I think so, absolutely.
Yeah.
So speaking about Flint and what you did, tell us about how, I'm so curious, how did you come to Flint? How did your exhibit come to be there? Your Jewish Michigan connection. I
think it's happened because of my dealer, Louis Meisel, that is a phenomenal dealer that I want to say a couple of words about him, because he is a dealer together with Leo Castelli in the 60s, 70s. There was two movements. There was one pop art and one photorealism, and he invented the word photorealism. And it was a moment in the American art that like example, Chuck Lost or other artists, or Richard Estes, it was a two group of artists It was a group like Liechtenstein, Andy Ward, Jones, Rauschenberg, and then there was a lot of other artists, and like Richard Estes, like Beckel, and like Chuck Loss, that I think the two significant, besides the American abstract, the two significant style in the American art is these two, the photorealism, and Louis Meisel in the 70s invent, because he done many shows in the museum and people didn't understand why people copy photograph. And he pushed that all over this year. Today is 78, almost 80 years old. And he done a show of photorealism in Flint 2 years before my show. And people react so well to my piece there. And he said, you know, I want to show this artist, John, the director, and Tracy. And this is how it started. I always think that good things is happen because of the people voting to see it. You know, people come and said, okay, I want to see this artist. I like this artist. And this is how it's happened. This is how connection happened, you know. A crowd and people critiques and writers write and people start to get interest, and that's how it's happened. And there's a demand, and this is how it's happened.
So you had a piece there, and now tell us about, I know that you might be coming back to Flint, and about the piece that you might be. I'd love you, our members, to hear that story.
So Louis Meisel organized the show, and it took us like 2 years because it was the COVID, of course. It was a long process to do the show, me, Shear and me, and Louis and Tracy, and we move it from time to time again and again. But I tell you something, I think Flint, you are all of you lucky there because it's a wonderful museum. I think it's a unique museum. It has a very nice collection. Permanent collection from classical to pop to photorealism to abstraction. And sometimes it amazes me to see a museum like that in a small place like that sometimes is better than a lot of museums in Europe, a lot of museums in America. And I'm proud to show there. I think they done amazing show. I never felt so good to see my pieces in like 5 different beautiful spaces, and hang very well, catalog very beautiful. They done tremendous job. Tracy done amazing job. And I'm very proud. You should, all of you be very proud. Besides that, you have a good museum in Detroit that dealing a lot of time more about political issue and other different artists and other minority. I think Flint is a more a conservative museum, but in a way is very, very interesting museum, how he handle and how he do shows. And John, like a director of this museum, change is the platform, that museum, and make it to one of the best museums in America. And I think I'm very proud to show there. And Louis donate a piece there, and I donate now a new piece of crystal that is going to be shown for next month in the entrance of the museum. This museum is unique because there's academia that connect to the museum, and they invite me to, told them to do a workshop there, and I done a workshop, and most of the people that came there, they were thirsty to come to hear me, and they love my work, and it was all of them was artists and not students. And I opened their eyes and I teach in a different way. I let them, every one of them copy one of the photorealistic major artists, and they done it. And it was so good that they asked me to come now a couple times more. They want me to come, and I enjoy that, you know, because when you teach another artist and when you influence another artist, that's the most important what artists has to do, to educate other collector, to educate other artists, to educate curator. I think this is our role in the society.
Well, I definitely agree with you about the Flint Museum. I mean, I would call it a hidden treasure that a lot of people don't know about it, but I'll tell you, a lot of people I know tonight have been to Flint, and it is an extraordinary museum. It's a classical museum, but you know, they do incredible exhibits, you know, very contemporary, very diverse. And I say to people, the DIA is wonderful. I love the DIA. I'm a docent there. But I always say Flint is 50 miles, you know, about 50 minutes and free parking. So I always say it's really easy. So
Yeah.
So I know Shear was going to let us know when you're going back to Flint. I just want to come watch your class, okay? I like to watch.
Everybody.
So tell people out there they can sign up for the class when they know. And it's a workshop, so it's a couple days you'll be teaching consecutively.
I could do something that I offer it right now without that I thought about it before. I have a lecture about all the movement of photorealism. So
wow.
if people, I said that online now, if the people want, I could organize in the museum together with you, and they could come and I could give the lecture about all the artists, and they could have more idea what is photorealism. And I think that's a good idea. Together with the school, together with the students, they could come and join us, and I could do a lecture about all this movement. And I think it's important to see it.
Oh, it's really exciting. Okay. Well, I will pass on that information.
You also ask Shear, because Shear is one of my right hand, and she helped me to connect to the new generation. You know, the most important, I think, with artists, and this is what Shear gave to me, is that when artists do one thing all his life, and he start to grow up and he get older, the artists that connect to the young generation, this is the artists that left something to the history. The artists that stay with their idea all the time and never move and never look right or left, there's the artists that stuck. And I could say that my daughter influenced me and helped me to open my eyes to a lot of different things, to a lot of idea, to political idea, to a lot of idea in the society, and all the movement to paint the scene in New York. This was her role, and I'm very proud, and I thank her for that. You know, she's here
Thank you, Shear. And that was one of the things you highlighted in Flint was the New York series.
Yeah.
And didn't you say, Shear, to your father, like, look around you where you live now, something?
Well, his work focuses on beauty and on intimacy. And I feel like there's so much beauty around us. New York City and Tel Aviv are the two cities that shaped who he is. So I thought it was only right to explore that, because it's also part of his identity.
Great.
And initially it wasn't supposed to be in the Flint show, but John and Tracy came to the studio, and some of the pieces we were working on were up, and they loved them and they wanted to include them. So they actually extended the space to include them.
Oh, it's terrific. And I actually had talked to Flint, by the way, and your catalog sold out. So
Yeah.
I know. We're printing now more, and we're gonna bring to the when I come back.
give it out as gifts.
Yes.
No, that book took almost as long as the exhibition. We were working on it for over a year. You have it?
I just happen to have it here.
We have it also. Yeah.
So maybe this is a good time to show the video, because Shear created this wonderful 5-minute video. It's kind of a walkthrough of your studio, and we get to see the process. So maybe Carol will have you show the video. I just want to say one thing. There is maybe a minute where there is no audio, just so you know.
This is a painting that's in process right now. And you can see the underpainting, the drawing that I do. First I project the image on the canvas, but I draw from the projection, and you can see the line that I could know where is everything. And then I start to paint, and you can see here the photograph, and we are copy exactly every element. When I see underpainting, I see the drawing, and then I put the color on the top of that. So here you see in the middle a piece of Olia in the Bear Mountain. It's a series that I've done for many, many years. It's like revisit. It's again It's a painting that I do now, and I done also a serial like that in 2018. That's the recent work, the diners. It's a diner in Queens, in Long Island City, and it's on the time of the Corona. The diner was the place that everybody feel comfortable to go in the time of the Corona. Latin, Black, Jewish, everybody feel that it's good for them to sit there and everybody be acceptable in that location. Diner is the icon of American art. And that's my new serial. That's a complete finished piece. What is interesting here in that piece, that the fluorescent color, it's coming up almost like a shadow box or a light box, but it's done in a painting. It's completely with many, many, many details, and that's a completely painting, the diner 2021, 2022. You see part of the drawing, but that's the New York scene. It's a shot that we took in New York, in a place where people play sport, and it's a man that his eyes was burning. It's a very powerful and very intimate, a banal moment that I could see in every day. But you can see it's very interesting on the painting. It's the drawing, and suddenly the color and the hands and the head will be the next part to paint, and then the background. But the drawing is basically the X-ray of every artist. When you see the drawing, you see what artist could have able to do in his painting. It's done. I mentioned Shear, and let's go.
That was so interesting to see the process of it all.
Yes.
So
yes. In the end, it's all about the process. I think also in the museum, they asked me in Flint to show one piece that it's unfinished, because it's always when I go to a show, people say, I don't believe it. It's look like a photograph. People don't understand that. It's in a way, it's good sometime to invite them and to see the process. I wish a lot of museums could show artists and show their process, because I think it's when you see the process, you see the mistake, you see the idea, you see the thinking, you see the breathing, you understand everything. And that's why it's important to do that. And they included video in the show, in the museum, and they show that. I think it's very necessary to show about any style of art or anything, especially in photorealism.
fascinating. Yeah, the video was great at Flint.
Thank you.
So curious, how long does it take you to actually finish a painting? I mean, there's so much detail.
So, but you see that we are working on many paintings at the same time. I always do the figure and the skin and all the stuff, and the other assistant, I have an assistant, I'm not shy on that, because it's like it's not something new, because it's like a workshop that done in the classical time. Well, Leonardo da Vinci took 10 people to help him, or Velasquez took 10 people to help him. It's not a problem. you need to be able to do a lot of different things. Because I trained like an abstract painter, most of my first layer, it's much faster than other. And I paint mostly that it's called on a prima. What do you mean in prima? On a prima, it's wet on wet. I touch the painting and then the same day I touch it again. Most of the artists don't do that because they train like that in academic way. They do the layer, they go and wait another week and then they do the next layer. I don't do that. And that's why it's very much more difficult to do prima because you need to be trained very well how you do the skin and how you do the hair and how to do it. But this is how I do that. And this gives me an advantage in terms of time. So what other studio could do in 6 or 7 months, we can do in a month. So we create much more works during the time, and I believe on that you need, you know, artists need to create to do things and not to be stuck, you know.
It also depends on the subject. So if it's a portrait with a minimal background, then it's going to be less time than something with a more intricate background. So anywhere from a month to 6 months.
Wow, 6 months. Some of the, I remember the New York series was just very detailed markets.
Right, they took much longer. But again, we work on a month to 6 months to finish a body of work because we work on multiple pieces at one time.
And I know that you're in about 15 different galleries, you know, internationally and locally. Are you anywhere in Michigan that we could see your works? Is there any?
Right now, I don't have, but I have many collectors that collect my work in Michigan more privately.
We're in the Doubletree lobby in Birmingham.
In Birmingham, there's a huge pieces of mine.
There's a few pieces of his that one of his collectors put in their hotel.
So the Doubletree, which used to be the Kingsley Inn, which I believe is Woodward and Long Lake, I believe. Okay,
Yeah,
well, that's great to know. Maybe our guests would like to go look at them.
Work. He commissioned me to do a big pieces, and it's there.
They're very large scale. They're beautiful.
And I know a lot of people in the Detroit area have your works. And what about in Israel? You're in Tel Aviv.
I'm in Israel. I collect by most of the major collector in Israel. I'm one of the generation of the 80s that succeed me and Michal Rovner and other 2 or 3 artists that international, we are very well known. But you know what, people, it's a good question what you said. They said, okay, you are Israeli artist, but you are in America since 35 years. And you show in so many important galleries around the world. So where you are, you Israeli artist, you American artist. And I think it's both. I think I'm international artist. I'm in America. You know, you have to understand, when I was much younger, you need a time until I got 40, I was able first time to paint a portrait. I was afraid from that. I was, don't feel comfortable. And I said to myself, after I saw the Les Maninas of Velázquez in the museum, and I sit there for 3 hours, and the guard told me, I'm going to call to the police. What are you doing here in front of this piece? Then I realized that I have to go back to the studio and teach myself how I could paint a portrait. And in the end, I start to paint, and I think to paint a portrait is a big responsibility. To do a portrait of somebody or anything. It's a difficult situation. It's the highest level in the art to paint a portrait. That's what I feel today. And it took me many years, but I think when you got to 40, you'll be able to find your way and to find your style and to find your moment. And from that moment, I change, and it gives me so much joy today.
So I think now's a great time to do the PowerPoint so we can see some of your portraits. So let's, we're gonna bring up the PowerPoint. And if you'd like to talk during it, Yigal or Shear, go ahead.
Okay, this is a good moment that I could talk about her. This is Shelly, and she was I painted her when she was 19 years old. And when, if you can stop one, it will run. I will want to tell about her that she was connected to a special unit in Israel that called Moran. And this unit today, everybody know, when they work in a cyber world through the computer. And the latest things that they done, it was in Iran, that when they killed the scientists that make the atomic bombs in Iran, and Israel from far away, through a machine that they put close there, wait for him when he go out, and they, without anything, through computer from Israel there, they shoot him without any person and they kill him. But Israel is very powerful in that unit. And she was the first woman that was responsible about 30 different soldiers that was in that unit. I'm very proud. I paint her when she was there, and it's called Bridge Over Troubled Water. That's how I called that series, because she was in the life dealing with so much trouble and so much things. And in the life, she was a woman, and a beautiful woman, and a beautiful girl that become a woman. And that was the most interesting in that portrait of Shelly.
It's remarkable.
Yeah.
And this is Shelly again. These are all Shelly.
Yes, this is all Shelly. That's Lizzy Jagger. That's the daughter of Mick Jagger and Jerry Hall from the Rolling Stone. There was a special story. I make here, if you can stop here. This one, it was the smoking Syria. And that was a funny story, because we invited her to photograph her and video her in Central Park. And she said, if you allowed me to smoke a cigarette, so she started to smoke. And it was white, all over, it was snow and a cold day. And suddenly the smoke was so beautiful coming out of her. And my daughter asked me, and she started to smoke another cigarette, like almost like an hour. And my daughter said, well, why? We invite her to work, not to smoke a cigarette. I said, Shear is the best cigarette that we ever done. It's so beautiful and it's so pure. And that's what her portrait. And after 1 hour, I said, cut, that's it. We don't need more. That was one of my best cigarettes, with the smoke and the cigarette in the white filling in the Central Park.
You can see the smoke floating, kind of, just floating.
Yeah, and it was fantastic, white on white, that's very transparent on the white of the snow. And it was so quiet. And I think everybody is different. That's what our moment with the nature.
Well, I was gonna say, Yigal doesn't normally direct the models on what to do. It's their choice how they're gonna connect with nature and how they want to come through. And this was her choice. So, yeah.
Oh, it's so interesting. Great.
Yeah. So Olya is one of my favorite model, and she's an actor and a filmmaker. This we shoot also, but we want to go to different place, and we suddenly stop and we saw this.
No, so we were supposed to shoot in something called Lavender Fields. They were supposed to be in bloom at the time. So we thought to do something different with some color. So there was supposed to be very large lavender fields, similar to this, but obviously purple. And when we got there, they were not in bloom. They were like 2 inches tall. And we were like, what are we gonna do? We have both of us photographing, another photographer, a videographer, the model, a whole shoot. And so we just decided to drive around the area and see if we could find something else. And we were about to get on the highway and go home, and there was this random secluded wheat field in the middle of nowhere, and we just ended up shooting there, and it was amazing.
Beautiful, just beautiful.
Yeah, because you feel the wind here, you feel the wind. That piece is from the collection of Elayne Kaminsky, where we're staying here in her home. She's a major collector of mine. She has a big foundation, and she lent around 30 pieces to that museum. And she has basically from every period. She followed me to everywhere, and she has fantastic collection.
A lot of the Flint show was her work that she loaned for the show.
And she had one of these pieces in, I think, too.
Yes.
So this
So
is
Americana is the new works. This is Betty. It's a famous doll that you can see. You see in the time of the corona, you see the things that you measure your fever,
The thermostat.
and you see the emptiness. And I think the Diner is an icon of an American art. Many artists, many movies, many things talk about Diner. Diners, it's give you amazing feeling when you go there. You don't need to, every person from different society could come and eat there and feel safe and feel good, and doesn't need to dress like crazy or whatever. And the Diner was, in the time of the Corona, was very fascinating to go and visit. And I think in 10 years from now, they're going to look on that painting and see that memory from that time and what's happened.
Yeah, diners are definitely part of the fabric of American
and here,
culture.
Yeah, and here is a funny story. We shot in 7 o'clock in the morning in Brooklyn. When you don't see it here, it's a ice cream shop. The mother is talking on the phone, and the girl was shouting for ice cream, and the store was closed. So what you don't see here in the painting, that she's licking the glass to get the ice cream. And that's a moment of that you can see in the street. That's a beauty in the street, that you can see. Sometime you can go to the street many times, you don't see anything, and suddenly you find that moment of love and happiness, you know.
It's remarkable. Oh,
Yeah.
this one we had on our
That's the famous Katz Diner, that everybody goes there. I have couple many paintings that I've done there now in the new shows in Israel and in the things. Katz Deli, it's a you know, it's the funny things when I shoot there. You know, when you go to other places, people don't let you to shoot. But when I go there, everybody didn't care. They eat the salami or the sandwich, the big sandwich, and they don't care if you photograph them. The passion for the sandwich was so big. So this is institution in New York City. If when you do a scene in New York, that has to be part of the New York scene. Again, that's a diner with a old Coca-Cola machine in Queens. It's beautiful because you see the reflection of all the neighborhood inside the glasses. You see the machine and the Coca-Cola, and it's beautiful. It's Americana. It's American art. It's American moment. And for me, after so many years, I feel so proud that I could go and record this moment. You know.
You know what, you also recorded a moment of COVID. You know, one of the ones you showed us in the video, you saw people with masks. So
yes,
you're really documenting history right here.
Yes, yes, you can see it, the emptiness, the diner outside that look like a ship like it's fantastic. The architecture, the feeling, the color, the shape, and the neon, the things that it's very the color, everything. So I'm very happy that we done that. I tell you that in the last show in Art Miami in Basel, there was the biggest reaction ever I got to my art with this area, because people felt so comfortable with that and like it so much, and feel that they're part of that, and everybody want to buy a piece, and they bought all the pieces. It never happened to me, something like that. I never thought that it will be a moment like that, but it is. It's remarkable how people react to that.
They connected with it. You know, diners are comfort food. We think of our childhood, you know, we think of comfort.
Yes.
It's so hard when you're looking at those, not to think you're looking at a photograph, the way you capture the color of the stainless steel, you know, the Coca-Cola machine.
Yes.
So
yes.
are they all for sale, the pieces we looked at for the Americana? If somebody was interested, where would they go?
We have some pieces available. Most of them sold, because we just had an exhibition in Israel with Zimak Contemporary Art, which is our gallery in Tel Aviv. So most of them sold there, but we do have a few left in the studio.
And I really will be happy if people is interesting. I could invite them to the studio and show them, because to see the studio is the best idea. You see the real process, you see the art, you see pieces from different time zone, and people will be very excited. I think the people like to come to studio, like what you've done here in the program is to be a voyeur in the studio. That's the best that I think people, and when you allow them to do that, I think you're doing good for the collector to come and see.
Well, I have to tell you, my cell phone is lighting up. Yes, yes to coming. Yes, we want a lecture. So people that are watching, yes, we want the lecture. We want to go. So we'll definitely have to do that. It's very
Absolutely.
exciting.
If you have any other question from the people, I'm happy to answer.
Well, I'm going to ask a couple more questions because I want to hear a little bit from Shear. I want to know, first of all, what's it like working with your father?
Well, it's been 12 years now, so I'm clearly happy. Obviously, working with family can be difficult at times. There's not a lot of boundaries, but it's amazing. It's big energy, big love. There's nothing like it. And I feel that when you care about what you do, it shows. And obviously there's an added element because we're family. So, you know, I care a little bit more.
I think when Shear finished the school, her mother told me, don't take her to work. I said, yes, I'm gonna take her to work because I tell you why about Shear. When she was 1 year, it's the three of my children, but two of my children, when I remember took Shear on my chest and go to shows every weekend, because that's what artists do. They only go to see shows, nothing interesting. And she always said, take her to the playground, take her to that. Why are you taking to the show? But I remember Shear, every time we went in front of, and she was 1 year, her eyes was lighting and she was laughing and she doesn't remember that, but I tell you, it was fascinated. And I knew that she will one day come back to the art and do that. And when she finished the school, my wife in that time, she said, no, don't take her. I said, no, I take her, I don't care. Yes, we a lot of time fight, a lot of time, but the love is bigger than anything. So she tell me everything in the face. She's the only one that criticized me in a big way, and she doesn't afraid. And first of all, today, I'm just the painter. I listen to her whenever she say yes, 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 and that's what I do.
Well, no, I graduated college in 2009, so it was right when we had a recession. So it was difficult in general to find work. So at first, I was temporarily working for him. I remember his publicist went on maternity leave, so I kind of was filling in, and it was 3 days a week, and then it went to full time, and then 12 years later, we're still here.
But it's a change because now she's part of the creative side, and
Right.
that's different. Part of the art, writing, part of the curation, part of everything.
Part of everything.
We're going to create a foundation together with Elayne Kaminsky, and we want to do museum after we're not going to be in this world. So, and she will be the person to run it. It's obviously, that's naturally. It's always happened naturally. That's the way. And my other son is a soccer player, so it's completely obvious that he didn't like to go and to join to help to his father. But that's our family. And now I have a little one. I have a little one that is 2.5 years old.
Oh my God.
Different woman, Julian. And he is painting all the time. You know, I think he will be an artist. He likes to paint. You know? So we'll see.
Well, he's watching his father, you know.
Watching, and everything that he see, wherever we go, say, Abba, this is a painting of Abba, everywhere he go. So, and he really demand. He go to when I work in I live part-time. I have a studio in North Carolina, a studio in New York. When I paint, one day we didn't realize that this step is a steps like in a second, and it's very dangerous. He walked inside and he took the brush and paint on all the new portrait that I done on the face. And we come and we saw the painter completely destroyed. But that's what's happened.
So, Shear, tell me, how do you market things, and do you use social media a lot?
Yeah, so we have, again, 15 galleries roughly that we work with, both domestic and international. So I'm the direct liaison with them. So when they need material, press release, videos, images, they come to me, I do it, I give it to them, they publicize it on their whatever platforms they want to use. We also we have an Instagram. I don't really use the Facebook anymore. It's really just the Instagram. I should be using it more, but it is a full-time job and I don't have the time for it as much. But yeah, every time we have things going on, I always publicize on Instagram as well.
Great. So we're going to have to start following you on Instagram too.
Yes.
People could follow in the Instagram and they could see new works on process and all of these things.
Right. And anytime we have fairs or exhibitions or any articles that are written, I always put it on our Instagram. It's just at Yigal Ozeri.
Great. Okay. So let me ask you, we're getting ready to end, but Yigal, I want to ask you, what advice would you give to an emerging artist or your younger self? Looking back now, what
So
advice can you
I
give?
always said to people, ask me, my assistant asked me a lot of time, I tell you something from my small kitchen. They asked me, look, we paint in your painting. We are very talented, of course. I help them a lot. I tell you the story in my studio. I don't let them work more than 3 days in my studio, that they will be able to work on their work. After a certain amount of time, I let them go and I find them a gallery or help them, find them a studio. In Elayne Kaminsky Foundation, we give them a lot of time, a studio residency program. We do all of that stuff. What I suggest to people is always to be connected to what's happening today, to be a unique in a way is whatever they paint, if they paint abstraction, they paint realism, or they paint minimalism, they do video, they have to learn and to follow what other people done in that time and to add something. Even they add 1%, that's a uniqueness. Today, in all the society, when there's so much internet and have so much, you can see about any artist in any country what they do. And if people smart, they could basically follow, in the beginning, copy other works and then learn what they could add to that moment that they love so much and what they could add to this artist. And if they will find their voice, then they are a real artist, then they could do something. If people could not add anything to the people that done before, that's not right for them to be an artist.
It's very thought-provoking. Yeah. What can you add?
Yeah.
And what are you working on now? What's coming up? What exhibits are coming up this year, or art fairs, or
We're participating art fair wise. We're participating in Palm Beach Art Fair in the end of March. We're participating in a Korean art fair in May. And for shows, he has a show April 27th in Munich with our gallery in Munich and September 3rd in Amsterdam. Wow. And every year we participate in Art Miami in the first week of December. So we'll be there as well. And I'm sure more things will. Pan Art Fair.
No, Pan Art Fair. But the most important is in the next 2 years, and this is the biggest news, is that the Smithsonian in Washington, and that's the biggest thing. If you can have something like that in your life, you fortune. Louis Mizell donate 45 pieces to the Smithsonian. They're going to build a whole wing of photorealism. It's the first time in the history of America. Usually it's more about abstraction, about other stuff, but they building a wing and they're going to take a show. And in that show, he donates 3 of my pieces to the collection of the Smithsonian. And this one will travel in maybe 30 or 40 museums around the world because the Smithsonian lend their collection to. I think this is the highlight that every artist that live today could put in his resume, because most of the artists that they show there, they are dead artists. So I'm fortunate to be, right. And to be, again, Israeli artists and American artists. I feel both because I think America and Israel connect so well together, and the Jewish connect to the American world. And I think I'm very proud that I'm part of that.
What a great story. First of all, hearing about the Smithsonian, that is so exciting to hear that news.
Yeah.
And I love the way you talk about being Israeli and being American, it's really very.
I think we have to strongly, with what's happened today in a lot of anti-Semitic all around the world, and also including America, fortunately, we have to be together. And we are like an American and Israeli and Jewish has to fight for that. and fight for our life and fight for our needs and be proud and don't be afraid.
And speak up.
We have a
speak up,
song.
yes.
We have a song. We have a song in Hebrew, and it's called "Kol Haolam Kulo is Gesher Tzar Meod," but אסור לנו לא לפחד כלל. It's a Hasidic song that Rabbi Karlibach sing. It's all the words is a very narrow bridge that you walk into that, but you don't have to be afraid. You have to walk and cross it. So it's a very, very powerful song that very fits to what today we live in the world that we live.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much. I'm going to thank you, and I'm going to have you end with one of your works. It's right behind Shear. Can we take a look at that?
Yeah, that's the work of Julie Huffman. It's a portrait of her. She's an artist, very well-known artist. I'm in the McNair Museum where I have a piece of her in my piece, and this is a painting of her. So Elayne asked me, and it's a very unique idea, to paint portraits of different artists. I make Kusama, Gerard Richter, in her collection. That's a unique idea of Elayne, and I paint Julie Huffman, and this is here hanging. The piece of Julie and the portrait.
Yeah, we get to see a new piece tonight, so I love that.
Yes, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity to hear
You're
about
wonderful,
your life,
Barbara.
your work. And we're going to send all of our guests tomorrow an email with your contact information. Again,
Come, we'll hug everybody. Come.
And I'm going to actually let everyone know about Flint. Well, I'm going to put together a lecture for you to talk on photorealism and all your and where the galleries and information on you. So everyone will get that in an email tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And
Thank
another
you.
things you can do, if you have any young artist that's interesting, we can absolutely offer him in Elayne Kaminsky Foundation a place to paint, a studio for 3 months. And then he could be able, because it's in Mana, it's a center that I built. We didn't talk about that they could come and they could be influenced by a lot of major artists and a lot of studio. And I think it'll be very good to people in Michigan and in Detroit.
Okay, we also Shear put that information because I'd like to
Yes, of
everyone
course.
know
Of
about
course.
that too.
Yeah, I'll send you that.
Well, thank you. This has been a joy. This has been
Thank you
a
so much.
wonderful event. And thank you for being here. So
Thank you.
good night, everybody.
Good night.
Guys.
Good night.